How right now in Singapore, how is the weather? Is it pretty warm?
We just sort of starting to enter into the wet season again, maybe. But it's pretty warm. No, lately starting to get a bit warm. So we had some tropical rain yesterday. So maybe it's a wet season here again as well. Not sure. Yeah, it can get very hot. It's like it's always summertime. Uh, like like for European summer, yeah, is the European summer. The temperature is actually much hotter than the European summer, but somehow the Europeans are telling me that it's hotter
Hmm.
during the European summers, even though the temperature is cooler. I have no idea how that works. Yeah,
And have you always lived in Singapore? Like you were born and raised?
yeah, yeah. I'm always Singapore, so born here, raised here. Yeah,
Yeah.
my mom is not. My mom is born in Malaysia, so during a time where no, we are still one country.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. Very cool. It I don't know too much about Singapore. Is it very diverse? Lots of different groups of people there.
Yeah, so we Singapore is actually in the middle of the Malay Peninsula, no archipelago, sorry. So which is also the peninsula, just south of Malaya. So by right, this is supposed to be a Malay region, but what happened is that the British colonized Singapore, and then so as a result, they brought in as what the British always do. They brought in all sort of workers from all around the world. They attract people from all around the world to work in their colonies. So we have a lot of Indians, we have a lot of Chinese as during the colonial period. So the Indians and the Chinese was actually the equal number of people when the British are around. So the Malays become the indigenous people becomes the minority. Because when the British came, it was just a fishing village. It was just a small village. So which is why the Malays, even if um, they grow their populations, it's still going to be a minority because how the British just sending immigrants in from all around the world. So eventually, what happened was that when India gained its independence, um, that was just after World War II, and Singapore was going through a lot of political changes. So a lot of Indians just went back to India. So because during the colonial period, the Indians think their home is actually in India. The Chinese think their home is in China. So that's how it works. So so it's just like the American blacks. Some of them, in the earlier days, think that their home is actually in Africa. That kind of idea. So the Indians went back, but the Chinese stayed because India had the independence and they have peace and then they have development and stuff. Yeah, but China was in the Civil War, so the Chinese stayed, and then eventually, we gained our independence. So since then, the population is around 70, nearly 70% Chinese, and then 15% Indian, 15% Malay, and then there's a small percentage of Eurasians and all the other different races. I think the percentage now might have changed because we got a lot of immigrants nowadays from India, Philippines, a lot of Europeans, Caucasians, Americans. So Singapore in today's terms is like it's a bit like New York. It's like no, there's a lot of different races of people, but the main population here, if you go walk around, you'll always be mostly Chinese, but you will see there's a significant number of Indians and Malays around.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. And
Yeah. And we all speak English. So it's like you go to China, but like this China looks very weird, and then everybody speaks English. Although we speak Chinese and dialects, so but we can all speak English.
oh,
Although
that's
you will
that's
find
cool.
that our English a bit weird. Mine is considered already very mild because I already try to speak proper English.
Mhm.
So if I start to speak Singlish, you might not understand half the time.
Of I wonder, do you pick up on like certain, like as far as like American English, do you pick up on like the certain um like specific things to like American English? Maybe not even as far as the language, but maybe like the emojis. Like, earlier I had emoji
Yeah,
your
yeah,
message with a
yeah,
100 and the peace sign. Like,
yeah.
do you pick
So
up on that?
that is an internet cultural thing. I think so. That's not really because Singapore is very westernized. So, but the thing is, our concept of West is very generic in a way that maybe the real West do not understand because the real West actually view each other as different people. Like the Canadians are Canadians, Americans are Americans, British are British. But in Singapore, it's like the West. Then it's like everyone is the West. No, we don't really differentiate. So we get very confused as well. Like for example, in our when we learn in school, our English is actually British English. We learn British English. So and it's very weird because we our English comes from the colonial times. So we continue to use words that is really old, like during the colonial English type of English, certain words will be used no longer is used in UK now. So when
Okay.
the British people come to Singapore, they got shocked when they hear certain words because they only hear their grandparents use it. They no longer use it within their generation or like in within UK. Only the very old people are using those words, but to us it's common words. So it's very interesting because I heard this from a YouTube channel. They are British and then they're documenting their life in Singapore. It's like what? Like to us, it's like this is just normal words. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting how we kept some of this heritage of the language, which the British has already abandoned. Like the British today don't really speak like the British in the 100 years ago. Like the 100 years ago, they are very gentlemanly, because they are the colonial masters, right? So they speak with a certain tone, like as if everyone is royalty. So nowadays, only the royalty still speaks like 100 years ago. The people, the normal people, is just like the soccer crowd. They just speak a very different form of English. But we get very confused because we digest so much American culture, so much American movies and everything. So even in the internet, most of the internet, English speaking internet is mostly American, or American centric. So ours when we spell, it's very confusing because the English and British spelling for words is a bit different. Like uh, for example, ionized, the ISED. That in American English is ISED, but in British English is IZED. Or is it the other way around? I can't tell. So I use both. I can use both of them in a single paragraph, and then get both group of people triggered. So the so no, yeah. So we get very confused because we cannot tell the difference between the two sometimes.
Nice. Wyatt, I'm really sorry. Before we continue on, I just want to give you a proper introduction. Um, Everybody out there, hi, my name is Chris. This is the Chee-Tash podcast. And today, very special guest, as I just mentioned, Wyatt from I know him from the YouTube channel Defense Politics Asia. Been following Wyatt for a little over a year now. Wyatt, please introduce yourself, though, for the audience and anything that I've missed there.
So hello everyone. I'm Wyatt from Defense Politics Asia, and so I run this so-called company media thingy called Defense Politics Asia for the past many years. I think since 2017, and then the the YouTube channel had only blown up since the Ukraine war started because before that I still not too sure what content to do, and so when Ukraine war happens, I'm personally trying to find what is happening. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. So I started mapping all the information inspired by Live UA map. So I started to map all the information that I can find so that I can know what exactly happened because I do not trust the mainstream media. As you can tell, because recently the biggest news is actually the leak of the United States military documents. And now that you know that they caught someone, so you now trace back the past 2 weeks, all the information, all the news that all these news channels has or news outlets have published. Go back and read them, and then you will know why I don't trust the media because they don't know what they're talking about, and usually just make things up if they don't know. And they will make things up in a way that you would think that it's real, and then you get confused because first they say that it's not true. There's a Russian disinformation. Then after that, the Russians say that is a US or NATO misinformation. Then you see the pro-Ukrainian people, laughing at people who believe this is real. Then the pro-Russians also laughing that this is people who think that this is real. And I'm one of them who think that it is real because I was in the military. I looking through the documents, I was like, this looks exactly like how a military document looks like. So it's very hard to fake a military documents because our imagining of normal people's imagination of the military is very different. We tend to think the military as very high tech, very sophisticated. Sometimes all people forget that these people are just normal human beings. They only use Microsoft Words, Excel, PowerPoint, and that's how their presentations will look like as well. So and then you squeeze information in ways that it looks aesthetically horrible, and that's largely like half of what it looks like in these documents, and this is exactly how it looks like. So then the kind of terminology. So I'm pretty convinced this is real. I just cannot confirm whether the data inside is accurate. But because I was in Intel, so my understanding of Intel is that even the intel that we get usually is just a signal. It's never the truth, the facts, because our intel can be wrong. So the intel that the NATO forces or the Ukrainian forces might be wrong as well. So whatever is inside is just a signal of what they know, and then it might be wrong. Just like the casualty numbers is ridiculous, it's too low. So maybe the Ukrainian maybe say something, then the Americans just believe it. They just write it down, yeah, just to make them happy. The so so I'm convinced it's real, but the media just write all sorts of stories. Different media say different things. Then you see the different government officers, from different countries all say different things. Suddenly, somehow the South Koreans are angry. Then the Israelis are saying that no such thing happened. Then after that, now they arrested someone. So which is the real information? Is even this arrest a real thing? We have no idea. So that's the problem with the mainstream media, because we they cannot really investigate properly, and they don't investigate properly, because journalism used to be about investigation, and then they report the news. If they cannot corroborate the information, usually they will not publish it. Because what happens in the past is that the real estate in the printed newspaper is very precious. When you print it, it costs money. So you cannot just spam information into a newspaper. You have to give good information. If not, you're wasting the space that you're printing the information. So today is internet age. Everything is free. They just spam the information. So information become more like, if there is misinformation and propaganda in the past in printed newspaper, is much worse now. So I thought that, okay, I need to plot my own news, what is happening in Ukraine. Then I thought, if I'm gonna plot all this information and just put it on the website, it feels like a waste, because DPA's website is the traffic was not very high. It was so. So I decided, just put it on YouTube. I just simply record, go through all the information, like just like how I used to go through when I was in the military, where I receive daily briefings. So I sort of do something similar. So it's like, that's why I call it a sit rep, because in military terms, it's situation report. So I basically just reporting the situation on the ground, and of the intel that we can gather. Basically, that's what intel is. Then somehow it picked up, and then the channel just blew up. Uh, and if I'm not wrong, DPA is the only channel that started from day one of the war. So most channels started like a few days later or sometime later. So DPA started right from day one. So I have a report for day one. Most channels do not have day one reports. So, and the most exciting part is actually the first week. The first 7 days is the most exciting of the war, because that was when nobody know what the hell is happening, and that was when the Russians make superb gains that nobody can imagine. them doing. Like they started to do all sort of Hollywood style kind of offensive. They you know they send in helicopters right straight into the airport, and then they got some of the helicopters getting shot down. Troops just roll past the border, nobody stopped them. Then the civilians are just driving all around the Russian military like as if nothing is like it's not important at all. It doesn't matter if the Russians came in. The then you have the UK government telling the people to make their own Molotov cocktail and throw at the Russian tanks. Those were the crazy days, and that was all in the first week. So after the first week, the front line start to get more settled down. That's when a lot of the other channels start to cover because the front line start to look more uh, clear. But yeah, so that's interesting to me.
Hmm.
Yeah, but the channel was heavily suppressed, so I'm not the biggest channel, unfortunately. I was. It's quite disappointing, but that's how it is.
Yeah, I do want to just give you your in America we say give somebody their flowers or compliment you on the amount of detail that you put in your videos compared to, and I listen to some other channels too, and some other people talk about the war in Ukraine. I know of History Legends, and I think he does a good job. And I listen to like Scott Ritter or uh,
Mm.
Douglas McGregor as well. But the amount of detail and visual representation that you put in your videos is truly outstanding, and I appreciate all the hard work that you put in your videos.
Thank you so much. Because ultimately it's all about the amount of time that you invest to, like for example, my mapping. Every day's mapping is at least 4 hours in order to map in all the information nowadays. In the earlier days, it was not the because the way how I map it is different. So in the earlier days, we do not know what is happening at where the Russian troops have arrived at. Where are they? Nobody knows where are they. So no, the way the technique, how I try to search for information was different. How I map it was different. So whenever there was some fighting, I would just indicate there was fighting here, and I would leave the icon there for days. So I don't really remove them until after certain days. I realized that it seems like a long time since we heard of anything here. Then I delete away the thing. So the mapping was a bit different. So every day I was just simply looking for more information. Um, Through Twitter, I searched through all the different location terms. I have 100 terms. I scroll through everything every day, and then after that, I start to realize, oh, some of the intel actually comes from actually a lot of the intel actually come from Ministry Defense reports from on the both sides. So that's when I go to the Telegram channels. I start to discover Telegram. I had Telegram, but no, I started to discover, oh, there was so much information actually in these channels. Then it started. So the dependence on the Telegram, the Twitter feeds got lesser and lesser because over time, I realized they are just retweeting, copy and pasting information from the Telegram channels. So then slowly, eventually, I start to realize I start to know all these different channels and the way how they write, the different Ministry of Defense, the way how they write, and then that they have their own habits. And then when they start to behave weird, like they start to use different terms. My sixth sense will start to like kick in. I was like, this is unusual. Like then that maybe they're trying to hide something, or maybe they're trying to say something, but they cannot just say it very clearly. Then that's when I will also tell my audience in the videos, no, this is a bit weird where they say this kind of thing, and then eventually, because due to there was two sources that was new from last year. One of them become rather famous nowadays, called Nebrisne Intelligence. They call it. He called himself that. So what he does is that he feed me a lot of fake information. So because of him, and there's one more guy who just copy and paste some Russian information where half of it was wrong, and I told him off. So he started he started to become better. But this guy who gave me 100% fake information, he didn't change. So he just went to find someone else to sponsor him. So, but because of this incident, like both came up at the same time, I decided that okay, I have to stop taking information from people I don't know that well. I have to stick to sources that I after half a year time, I know that they are reliable. That's when I start to have this primary sources, secondary sources kind of thing more clearly. And then I changed the format to I update all the intelligence on a clean slate daily. That's when the 4 or 5 hours become just the grind, where every day I start a new day with deleting all the I will duplicate the map, and I'll delete all the old information. Then all the yesterday's information, I'll change it all to gray color, and then I'll plot an entirely new day of intelligence. So, so that was a change because previously, when there was fighting, the fighting icon will always be there. It will always stay there until I decided that I think there's no more fighting there. Then I'll just remove. So that was more presumptive. But now it's like it's only purely based on intelligence. So if no one says there's fighting there, then I will not assume there's fighting there. But this is purely because the front line has all stagnant. Everything has stopped moving, and the front line is predictable. The different sources are all reliable. Yeah, previously the much earlier it was like nobody know what's happening. Nobody know where is the Russians, especially in the southern front, in the Kherson Mykolaiv region. The Russians are just running all over the place, and it's like you can't even track what the hell where the hell they went. It's like the information come bits and pieces. So the style of mapping the information was different. It was just a change because the war have changed. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it was very painful, and and the fact that I need to spend this much time makes me doubt a lot of the other so-called experts. How are you able to know as much as you know? Where do you get your sources? Because almost everybody's reading the same sources. So unless you have a insider information, you can't possibly know things that I don't know. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't watch YouTube channels or any YouTube videos on Ukraine war because uh, I feel that everybody is just interpreting what the information is, and then they put their own spin on it, or they inject their own opinion, especially for the pro-Ukrainian ones that are just uh just like fanboys. They're just for their fans of this, like as if it's a football match. They're making things up, make bad things sounds good, make good things sounds better. So they are just using the same piece of information. Like even though they're pro-Ukrainian, they're actually taking pro-Russian information to report all these things, and then they just put their own spin on it. So yeah, so the same thing for all the experts, be it the Colonel McGregor or whatever. No, this I believe it's the same. I can't possibly imagine that they know things that I do not know in terms of the Ukraine war. So unless they have insider intel, which I don't think they have, because nobody will risk their jobs to give them information that they don't have. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
and they do have an audience to sell to. Like if you are already show, you always been talking about the Russians is gonna win, the Ukraine's gonna lose, and NATO is doing the wrong thing, then they have to keep that narrative going, unless no unless something very drastically changed that they cannot hold that narrative. Yeah, so that's why I don't watch because I feel that if I watch, then I will just influence my own objective analysis of what is happening. So for me,
Yeah.
my opinions come from the trends that I was because I track every day, so I can sense the trending of what is happening through the way how they talk, the different sources, the way how they write, the words that they use. Because even though they support their sides, uh, sometimes they will have to admit certain truth. Be it like things are going tough for the Russians, then the pro-Russian sources sometimes they will use different words that 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 suggests that things are a bit not so well. Same thing from the pro-Ukrainian side. No, but when they admit that things is really bad, then the things must be really bad because they are supposed to be pro their side. Like what happening in Bakhmut at this moment is horrible for the Ukrainians because all the pro-Ukrainian sources sounding like the end of the world. Like they are like always talking about how bad Bakhmut situation is. And if the supporters, the hardcore supporters are saying that, then things must be much worse than what they're saying. So yeah, so that's how I
Mm-hmm.
read things. Yeah, so I'm not sure what other channels actually say. The only one that I do watch is actually History Legend, because he's a good buddy of mine.
Mm-hmm.
That I got to know through the coverage of Ukraine war. We become very good friends, and he also used a lot of the information that I provide because he find my information also, because I map it daily. All the sources are there. He can always click through the map and find the source and try to understand the details. But he do very good analysis because he talk about things that I don't cover. So even his videos, I learn things. So which is why I still watch his stuff. No, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's
it's a
that.
very long answer. I'm so sorry.
No, no, it's all good. I enjoy listening to you talk and your analysis on this whole situation. You did mention earlier the recent leaks that happened with the U.S. Department of Defense or Pentagon leaks, and I wanted to ask you actually a couple questions on that because I was reading some stuff about it and some of like the major points that I saw in the leaks,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them was, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Ukrainian air defense systems were being drastically depleted to a point where they were
Mm-hmm.
almost going to like run out. And um, when I was reading this in the, I know it's American media source, Washington Post, they were saying that, well, this could potentially give way to Russians then having air superiority over Ukraine without having to worry about, you know, Ukrainian missiles shooting down their planes. Do what I guess one question is how drastic or like how severe of a blow would that be to Ukraine if Russians did have like free reign over their
They,
airspace like that?
they already largely have free reigns over Ukraine for a long time.
Oh,
So
really?
that is the problem with um you can have air defense, but the thing is that every time you use your air defense, you get marked where your air defense is. Especially, when the Russians launch all these different drones and missile strikes on Ukraine, every time the SAM system light up, the sec- there is a saying that there was always a second wave of missiles targeting all these SAM sites. So this is already one problem that the Ukrainians have been facing, and whenever they detect the because it's like the pro-Ukrainian side is very very cute. They always talk about, wow, they have these HARMS missiles, this missile that tracks radar and they actually attacks radar. The the Russians have pro- definitely have similar stuff. So whenever you on your radar, you get detected. And the Russians also using the surveillance drones and actively looking for air defense systems. So the Ukrainians are constantly losing air defense all the time because it's a war. So it's just the Russians probably will lose as well. So it's just a war. No, people die, things get destroyed all the time. It's just a matter of rates. Who are you making good trades? But the Russians nowadays, so they already have air superiority, they have missile superiority, artillery superiority. The Ukrainians used to have UAV superiority. That's gone. The Russians now have more UAVs now, probably more than the Ukrainians, because that was also reported by pro-Ukrainian sources. Then now the Russians have they have improvised the dumb bomb, so the bombs that are just the aircraft used to just drop. They now augmented to be able to glide, to fly further. So, and then they can be super accurate. Within, I read was within 10 meters accuracy. But these bombs are huge. These are 500 to 1,500 kilogram bombs. So this, so just to put into context how powerful such a bomb is, a HIMARS biggest payload was I think only 90 kilograms. HIMARS missile, the biggest uh unitary, they call it unitary warhead. That means it doesn't because most HIMARS actually they explode into multiple small bombs. So if it's just one rocket, the biggest warhead was 90 kilograms. A bomb from an aircraft can go from 500 to 1,500 kilograms. So the
Wow.
explosion is so much more powerful. And these bombs now can fly on their own. They can glide to their targets. And I read was like they are dropping these bombs 80, 90 kilometers. Or the closest is 30, 40 kilometers from the front line. So
Wow.
that means the surface to air defense of the Ukrainians, which you cannot put it on the front line. You have to put it behind the front line. They cannot even target the Russian aircraft. The Russian aircraft will probably just enter the range of the radar. The missiles can't even launch. They drop their bombs and they turn around and go. So the Russians already have air superiority, and they are now bombing the Ukrainians at will, regardless of what the Ukrainians do. And the Ukrainians, which is why they are asking so much about the F-16s. They need the fighter jets to able to intercept this Russian aircraft. But the fact is, depending on the version of the F-16 they are given, they might not even have the MRAM, the mid-range missiles that can engage in further range. So if they give them the lowest end F-16, they probably might not have the ability because they only have sidewinders. And that is disregarding the fact that the Russians have one of the world's best air defense systems. They have the S-400s, S-300s. There is a rumored S-450s. We do not know what the hell they have that they can easily shut down everything. So, because it's arguable, if the Americans have better air defense system, I have no idea. But the Russians is always famous for air defense. So there's nothing much the Ukrainians can do at this moment. So if and the Russians have no needs to fly into Ukraine as well. They are always going to just fly near the front line, drop their bombs and go. Because why is there any needs to fly into Ukraine to risk your aircraft? Because there will definitely be air defense systems deeper into Ukraine, for
That
sure.
makes sense.
So
Yeah.
there's no reason for them to fly in. They can just use missile strikes. They can use drones. So that's why there is a different kind of the military strategy. Like the Americans love to fly their planes into enemy territory, and they use the stealth aircraft, take out all the SAM sites, the radar, power stations, but usually they are not fighting a peer level enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So not like Ukraine versus Russia. This pretty much they're very close in terms of the level of military. So yes, that the Ukrainians are like a smaller version of Russia, slightly lower tech. That's all, and then they are now augmented with Western equipments. So they are pretty much close. So whether the Americans can do the same thing to the Russians is a question mark. Nobody knows whether they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Russians, they do not have this kind of doctrine. They are always going to be like using their air force only closer to the front line. Like I'm not even sure if they use that much aircraft even in the first week of war, flying. I think they only have some flying over Kiev. I think
Mm-hmm.
because I think they are providing air cover for their airborne troops. But otherwise, I don't really know. I don't really see the Russians like sending like the World War II, they send the bombers in deep into enemy airspace kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, even the heavy bombers, they are launching cruise missiles. They are not dropping dumb bombs. So so there's still more to come, I guess.
And as
Yeah,
far as the
another stupid long answer. Why am I always giving such a long answer?
no, you're very detailed. No, I appreciate it. Um, with the F-16s that you mentioned, currently, what is do we know the current state of like the Ukrainian Air Force, or like do they even have like a quote unquote Air Force?
So apparently, their first first pre-war air force was gone. It's pretty much gone. At least the fighter jets and um, many of the aircrafts. Helicopters, they still have a lot previous from the pre-war, I guess. But the thing, then after that, they started to refurbish all the Soviet era the air force. That's why they have a revival. Because for during my reporting, there was a 1 month period from memory. Around a 1 month period, there's totally no information of any shoot downs of Ukrainian air force. So it was very bizarre. It was very weird because previously I don't even report on shoot downs because it was happening so often. Like there is like a daily thing. So it's like what's the point of reporting something that is like always gonna happen all the time. But after that, it was so quiet. There's no shoot down for so long that I started to realize. I thought that the Ukrainian Air Force is gone. Then after that, there was information that they actually revived all the Soviet airframe. They repair it, maybe give it some engine or whatever. Then they send them to fly and do their work. And then came all the donated aircrafts from all of NATO and the Western countries where they used to be part of the Warsaw Pact. So they have a lot of the Soviet era planes. They all donated. So until today, they still have an air force, but this air force is very limited. A lot of the aircraft was lost during their offensives because they were using the air force to help to support their offensive. There are quite a number of aircraft I remember getting shot down during those days. And then there was also another period where they lost a lot of aircraft when the Russians are pushing around a month, 2 months ago, the past few months, where the Russians were pushing and then they also lost a lot of aircraft because they are trying to help out their ground defense to push back the Russians. That was when they also seem to lose so many aircrafts. So they still have the Air Force today. They still have shutdowns, but it's getting a lot lesser. I suspect they are preserving their Air Force for their offensive. So I think
Okay.
that's the reason because you cannot just spend it all. You can spend the aircraft and then you can wipe out your whole Air Force in a day if you want to. But it's probably better to preserve it, keep it a grind, because that's basically what the war is now. It's just an attritional warfare.
And you know what? Another thing I saw in those leaks was the talks of the number of casualties between Ukraine and Russia, and I don't know if you saw that as well. And do you take the numbers
Yeah.
that were in the leaks? I believe in the leaks it said around 71,000 on the Ukrainian side casualties, and then Russian side 16,000 to 17,500.
Yeah,
Now,
that's a fake number.
yeah.
That's the manipulated number. That's not the real one. The real one was, I believe the real one was they wrote around like 76,000 for the Russian side, and then the Ukrainian side was like 60 something. Let me check my information. So because I'm trying to collect all this data, all these papers as well.
Mhm.
So the thing the number was, let me check. Which one was it? Sorry guys, if you are on podcast. So I will just talk about something while I'm trying to search the numbers. Yeah, the one that you saw was the fake one. Where they say
Mhm.
that there was a 16,000 to 17.5 thousand KIA. I
Mhm.
think that's the wrong one because they wrote that the Russians only lost seven fighter aircraft. That's clearly wrong. That's the manipulated one. Where's the other one? Um,
And I
so sorry,
even
podcast.
no, I even saw that the Pentagon had released numbers saying that there was like close to quarter of a million, 200,000 Russian casualties, which seems like way too much. But just upon like my limited knowledge, that just seems like quite a bit. Even though I know Russia has a big military, so just from sheer numbers, but
Oh, I found the corrected one
mhm.
is 35.5 to 43.5 thousand KIA for the Russian side. So 72 fighter or bombers, 82 helicopters, then 6,004 ground vehicles. So the Ukrainian side they wrote is that they lost only 16,000 to 17,500. So they are saying the Russians are lost 3 times more. And then the Ukrainians say that they lost 60 aircraft, 32 helicopters, then 11 SAM, 34 tactical SAM, which is like impossible. They definitely lost more than that.
Mhm.
So so but as usual, be on Twitter, on my channel, anywhere, I always tell people not to care that much about the casualty numbers, especially when the Ukrainians talking about Russian casualties or the Russians talking about Ukrainian casualties. They can't possibly know the real casualty numbers because if you drop a bomb, the entire body can just disintegrate. It can just explode into pieces, and then you can never find the body ever again. How are you going to count? They are just projecting. They always have this projection, of course, because based on the troop intels, the information, the reports that is submitted from the troops on the ground, then they do some estimates because that allows them to do war planning. But these numbers are always not accurate. Like I say, intel is just a signal, so it's not really the facts. You do not know the facts. So the only thing that they can know is their own casualty numbers. The Russians will always know their own casualty numbers. The Ukrainians will always know their casualty numbers. The Because once you lose contact with your troops, they can be AWOL. They can be like disappear. They can surrender. They can miss, so they're MIA, missing in action. They can be uh they just surrender. So basically that's missing in action as well. They can be killed off, and then you just lost contact. So only you know how much troops that you can still command, because the units on the ground will actually always report on their SITREP, the situation report, saying how many troops are still intact in their unit, how many troops has been lost or they lost contact with. So but even that, the Ukrainians will never tell the truth to the allies, because why would they do that? Because if you tell them that, oh, we actually lost 120,000 troops or 200,000, 250,000 troops, the probably most likely where I estimate the real number is over 100,000 to 250,000, because it's been a long time. The last time I say they lost 100,000 was like half a year ago. So they probably already lost more than that, because the Russians now attacking with the mobilized troops. So the war is a lot more intense than it was half a year ago. So the they cannot admit the truth, because if they admit the truth, the allies would, especially if you look at the papers, the information was that they are being shared with so many different countries. So all these different countries, their military leaders, their generals, the Ministry of Defense, when they read, and it was like they will get demoralized. Like, how do we help Ukraine when Ukraine is losing, or losing so badly? So the numbers of the Russians losing 3 times more, then they're like, oh, you see, the Ukrainians are doing very well. We need to feed them more ammunition and weapons so that they can fight better. That makes sense, and that's probably why we are hearing the narrative, or the way how the Western leaders put it. They always like very bullish about their chances. Is probably because of these reports. They react. They think that stupid Russians. No, they can't even beat the Ukrainians. We're gonna feed them more weapons. But the reality on the ground might actually be very different. The casualty numbers easily will be 10 times that of what there was written there by the Ukraine by this on this paper. Because if the Ukrainians reported that they only lost 20,000 troops, the Americans are not going to put their own estimates there, because they are not going to piss off the Ukrainians, because ultimately they are all friends and allies, right? So they have to take their numbers and take their words for it.
Mhm.
Similarly, the Ukrainians say, "Oh, Bucha massacre." All the Western countries will have to agree that, oh, that happened, even though maybe in their mind they don't believe it's real, but they have to play along, because they are now all part of the same team. And that's actually very dangerous, because if there's no pushback, then the Ukrainians can do whatever they want, say whatever they want.
Mhm.
And yeah, so this is what we see. And that will actually have a consequence in terms of the war. Like just like these casualty numbers, if the US do not have the proper estimates, then all the allies will be making decisions based on wrong information, and then they'll be making a bad information. So you can also tell it from how the propaganda from the Ukraine contradicts with the things that they themselves say later. Like for example, they say they are winning. They say they are shooting down the Russian aircraft by this much. Then they say that they actually need more air defense. There is a contradiction there. Then after that, they say that they need fighters, but then you're winning, right? So why suddenly you need more fighters?
I see what you're saying.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of contradiction because the Ukrainians are going on a full information war. Uh, Also some call it hybrid warfare. So as a result, so many of their words cannot be trusted. So that actually, by right, hybrid warfare is actually used on your enemy. But what happens is that the Ukrainians also use it on their own friends, on their own allies, the European countries and the Americans. So they also use the same technique to pressure the West to give them more stuff. And in the end, what happens is that when they talk to the media, talk to the press, talk to other countries, talk to the leaders, the information always varies. It's always contradicting. So um, yeah, so that's why these papers all these leaks become very significant to a lot of analysts because this just shows the truth as much as what this paper might be uh, of what is actually happening on the ground, and it negates a lot of this pro-Ukrainian talk or the information from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry or the leadership, talking about all these chest thumping kind of words, whereas it's very confusing. Like at one hand they say they are winning, then on the other hand they say the Russians are firing 7 times more shells than them. It's like, so are you winning or you're not winning? That kind of thing is very confusing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
One last thing on the leaks that a very interesting thing that I saw in them was this thing about South Korea and how
Mm-hmm.
South Korea apparently, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, they were concerned that if they were to export military items to the United States, that those items would then end up in Ukraine, and they were very concerned. Like they did not want that to happen for fear of potentially like pissing off the Russians. Would you say that
I
that's accurate?
uh I think that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
Because they are selling to the Polish tremendous number of tanks, tremendous number of I think artillery and shells, and clearly the Polish is going to send all this to Ukraine, or they're going to enter war with Russia, um, for whatever stupid reason that they put themselves into. We do not know what's the plan of Poland because they are militarizing at the level that it looks like they are going to prepare for war with Russia, or they are planning to conquer the rest of West Europe. I have no idea why are they militarizing so much. So they are buying way too much weapons. They are buying way too much tanks. They are buying like I think 100 HIMARS or 200 or 300 HIMARS. It's some stupid numbers where it's like numbers coming from the sky. So so Poland, we do not know what Poland is doing. So and the Koreans are contributing a huge part of this militarization. So definitely a portion is going to end up in Ukraine. So the South Koreans worry, but yet they want to earn the money is nonsensical to me. So selling things to the Americans and end up in Ukraine is also nonsensical. So it's like, I don't think that is a worry at all. I
Okay.
think they're more worried about the branding. They are not worried about the weapons reaching Ukraine because that's good for business, right? They're more worried about the branding. We are now involved in a war that is nothing to do with us, and they are just next to Russia. So no, that is their concern. But the thing is, they are totally US leaning, or US pro US, or within the influence of US.
Mm.
Like 100% they are in the US side, just like Japan. So no, the moment Americans go against the Russians as like see them as an enemy, then you are part of they are also become the enemy of Russia
I
naturally.
see.
It's like it's not they're not even trying to not be that. Like at least the Singapore, after the sanctioning of Russia, kind of backtrack, and then the Russian embassy is still in Singapore. We have a full ambassador from Russia in Singapore as well. So and then we are secretly buying Russian energy. We are also, um, you know, went to pay our respect to the new emperor in China. So just like Macron went to pay the respect to the emperor of China. So we at least we you can still argue that France and Singapore is like, oh, we are not that US led. We still have our own foreign policy. What is South Korea doing? No, South Korea is not even doing this kind of thing. They but then they have their own problem. They have North Korea. So their concern is irrelevant at all. I don't think it's important at all. It's not like, oh, the Russians going to say, okay, North Korea go and invade South Korea because they not South Korea give what ammunition and weapons to Ukraine. It's not never going to happen. North Korea will not go to war also due because of Ukraine.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to die for Ukraine. So yeah, I think it's a
Okay.
nothing burger.
Well, yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
I mean, I can be wrong, don't take my word for it. I'm just saying that based on my opinion,
Mhm.
because geopolitics is actually my interest. I'm not that good with military stuff. Yeah, I'm more towards the geopolitics because I like to look at divisions, actions, and I'm less influenced by the narrative and the speech because politicians tend to lie. So, and then not just the politicians, even the ministries spokesmen tend to lie.
Mhm.
Like for example, China spokespersons has nothing to do with what their ministry is doing. They're just there to make themselves look good. That's their job. That's their brand. Their job is to do branding for China. So whatever they say has zero correlation to what they are doing. So
Mm.
so so they can say, no, we are totally not militarizing South China Sea. I think this is the outrageous lie. Then the next 6 months later, the missiles is on the island. That's what China do. So usually I only watch the actions, and if you watch the actions, you will know much more than just listening to what they say.
And to go along with that, um, with I think China also say that, oh, we're not supplying Russia with any military items. However, they still supply things like microchips maybe, which end up being used militarily. Like, is that kind of like another example of what you're talking about?
Yeah. So, but you have to look at from China's perspective. Russia is a huge military threat and a geopolitical rival to China. I mean, Russia is a huge threat to China. They are the only country with a common border where tanks can just roll into China. So so this Ukraine war is definitely, China is definitely very happy with this war because it forced Russia to treat China better. Because Russia has never wanted to be so good, so close to China. Like they always keep China with at arm's length. If, what happens instead? They actually make all the trade deals with Germany, to sell the oil. They always, Russia had always tried to integrate with the Europeans. They're trying to make friends. They build all the pipelines. Most of the pipelines is to Europe. It's not to China. They could have done it with China a long time ago. They only have one or two pipelines to China, and it was also rather new. The thing is, the war have forced Russia into a position where they had to find new markets, and China is that market. And the consumer goods that they used to import from Europe and the West, now they just get the alternatives from China, so they have no choice. Russia have been forced into that position. So, but the thing is, like I said, they are still a military threat. Russia, along with United States, is the only two countries that can potentially defeat China in the war. I don't even think India can. So India and China will fight to a stalemate. The Russia and United States can literally defeat China, even if China have the so-called 1 billion population nonsense thing. The they can potentially defeat it. So for China, they want this war to drag as long as possible because it will force Russia's hands, and it also weakens Russia militarily, or at least let it economically become weaker, that sort of things. So it's to China's advantage to not give Russia weapons,
Mm-hmm.
to let them grind. And they know that Russia have the capability to build the ammunitions and whatever. Just feed them some of these components and let them do their things. There's no reason to provide uh, Russia with things.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to, because they have their own concerns. Because who knows, they want to start a war with Taiwan if the time is right. If United States is distracted enough, Europe is distracted enough, then it's a good time to attack Taiwan, because they don't think the US will be able to react to that well. So tentatively, it's not the right time, because United States is not at war.
Mm-hmm.
So the navies, all the carrier groups are all free. They are still nothing to do. They're just sailing around. So it's not the right time just yet. But China, in my opinion, China will not help. They will just say a lot of things like, lately they went to Russia, and then they say about all this so-called peace plan, which is not a peace plan. They are just basically just trying to say things that make themselves looks good. So
Mm-hmm.
paint themselves as the good guys. And yeah, it's working out for them, because people really thought that there was a peace plan. Even the Ukrainians thought that there was a peace plan, but there wasn't. They were angry that the Chinese didn't call him, didn't call Zelensky. They thought Xi Jinping would call Zelensky, which is crazy. It's like, he's the emperor. You are not the emperor. You are supposed to go to him, not him come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the Zelensky. So there is this also, Zelensky, because everybody has been visiting him. So he's feeling really powerful, in the sense that even though his country is under siege, he's feeling like everybody's listening to him. So he probably also felt a bit indignated, I guess, right? A bit unhappy that the Chinese did not come and visit. The Japanese Prime Minister came, so he's like, why the hell is the world's leaders all going to Kiev for what? No, it's like, it don't make sense to me. So now, because he's so used to that, he thought that Xi Jinping will come to him, because he just went to Moscow, right? So he might go to Kiev, that will give Kiev a lot of bargaining chip. But China did not even bother talk to them, which is so funny.
Wow.
So yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I just thought that was funny. I was like,
Yeah.
because when they were talking about, because so off sorry off for the off tangent, but he's like, so when Xi Jinping went to Moscow, I was like thinking, so because there was news report saying that he'll go to Kiev next. I was thinking for what? Why would they want to do that? Like, the I don't think so. My gut feeling was that they will not do that. Then so everybody was watching and waiting, and then he just he just flew back to China, and then that's it. Then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, now then like the past week, I think the stories was that Zelensky is pissed because China did not call Zelensky at all.
Mm-hmm.
That was I thinking, why the hell they want to call you, for what reason? It's like, why do they need to pay their respect to you? You should be paying the respect to the new emperor. He got his third term. He officialized that he's a emperor now. Just that the term is not emperor, it's the president. Because no one can be forever serving. You can only serve 2 terms as the leader of China. So he got his third term. He consolidated power. He's literally emperor.
Mm-hmm.
He's now he's now officially one of the most powerful person in the world. Previously, maybe it's not, because you can't be replaced. Just like the US president, yeah, you can be powerful, but he's not forever powerful. You are not emperor.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's the emperor. Now he's like, he can be forever powerful. Yeah, so why would China call you for what? There's nothing to benefit for China.
Yeah.
Like, What's the benefit? I do not know what's the benefit to China. No, pissed off Russia. So why would they want to piss off their no backup plan?
Hmm.
Because because if Russia is going to provide all the energy to you, China, then China would have less worries about the water channels getting blockade by the United States. So they don't need to depend so much on oil and gas from the Middle East. So they can import energy, coal, even from Russia all over land. So much more safer. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's that. Uh, sorry, listeners, for all the super long answers. It's unnecessary. I understand. Like, when will this voice shut up?
No,
You get your point across. It's enough.
no, and I just I love listening to it. So no, for me it's a treat. So no, no worries at
Yeah.
all, Wyatt. um, speaking of like the relationships between these countries, Russia specifically, during the time of this war, what has been or what countries have not necessarily like come to the aid of Russia, but have are there countries out there who have kind of refused to like outright like what's the word condemn Russia, or they're kind of just staying back and saying, well, it's not our fight? Like are there a lot of countries out there like not outright supporting Russia,
That's
but
most of the world.
oh
That's most
really?
of the world. That's the funny thing, because when United States talk, they always say no, the world, the world, the world, because like as if they represent the world, or Europe plus North America, actually just Canada and United States. That represents the world, because that is the world to the Western world. That is the Western world, so they say the world,
Hmm.
and the world will include Japan, South Korea, Australia, and maybe Singapore and Philippines. So they think that that's the world. But the thing is, most of the world in reality don't care about this war. Like literally, they don't care. If you, I believe that if you actually look at the headlines, which I don't, so I'm just guessing, you unlikely to see Ukraine war in the front lines, in the headlines. Probably very seldom, unless something very big happen. For example, like maybe the Russians withdraw from Kherson and Kharkiv. Yeah, so that is big news enough for them to cover on the headlines, on the front page. Otherwise, no, nobody's going to talk about Ukraine. Ukraine is just some far away land that nobody cares. Just like nobody cares about Armenia and Azerbaijan when they fight. Like when they fight, I don't even know they fought the last time, until certain things happen about because of the usage of the drones, and then how the Armenians lost the war so quickly. That actually made the news because it was a shock to people that they lost the war so quickly uh, because of drones. That was the first time a country to country conflict that drones becomes the main uh, vanguard in the war, in the military operation. But that was the reason that was it was even going on into the news. Nobody cares about them fighting, just like nobody cares about Myanmar now. Until lately, the horrific photos came out from a bombing mission from the junta, the military junta. But those airstrikes is happening on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. Just at this one in particular, they have very good photos that shows the bodies heavily mutilated because of the explosions. So that made headlines. So why would people care about Ukraine? So it's the West that is only other people only care about Ukraine. Just like because like they like to say, they're all white and they're all blue eyes, so they're their own people, so they're all Caucasians. So yeah, maybe that's the reason. Just like, who cares about Palestine? Nobody cares about Palestine. Only the Muslims care about Palestine because it's their own people, because they like, or the Rohingyas because they are all Muslims. But the thing is, but that is because that's only the interest in terms of reading the news. who who actually cares? Like really care? Not much. Even for be it Palestinians or the Rohingyas or the Burmese, no one cares. No one is going to say cannot. We have to do the right thing. Then the country declare war. we're going to enter war. We're going to like do whatever we can. Nobody does that. Nobody go to their MP and say, no, you have to go to parliament and no demand that we enter war, or we demand that we do something to this ex government because we need to help our veterans. Or no, nobody cares. No,
Hmm.
so Ukraine war is very weird because the entire of the so-called Western world cares about Ukraine, but they never cared when it was still a whole country. They don't really care when they like. Who care about Ukraine? Ukraine is the place where you find mail order brides. Do you want a Ukrainian wife? Then that's where you try to find get your money scammed by some Ukrainian company, dating company, dating agency, bring you to meet some Ukrainian woman, and then your money got scammed because they don't want to marry you. Like maybe that's what. No, other than that, Ukraine don't really appear on people's radar except football. Maybe sometimes Ukrainian football was doing well, but yeah, but that wasn't very often as well. So,
Hmm.
or maybe Dynamo Kiev or Shakhtar Donetsk in football, they're doing well in the Champions League. But otherwise, people never think about Ukraine. Then suddenly, this war, oh, everybody is about Ukraine. It's like, come on, man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Um,
I I do not know why I was talking about this. I'm so sorry. I'm so off the tangent.
no,
Yeah,
no.
I blame the Red Bull. I
Yeah,
think it's
the
the
Red
Red
Bull.
Bull.
Well, I wanted to ask you something to another thing you mentioned earlier about like the first week of the war being like lots of things happening. And was the first week where Russia like went directly at Kiev, the capital, and
Yes,
they went directly at it? And
they're really at it.
what
They were right outside Kiev on the first to second day.
okay.
That was how fast it was. So so in their operations, so I believe the idea was to put immediate pressure on the Ukrainian government to make them go into negotiations because they I don't think the Russians want a war. So that's why they call it a special military operation, because the idea is just to subjugate the Ukrainian government to make them for good sign a deal that ends the conflict in Donetsk, and just let the whole Donetsk and Luhansk um, region go on their own to become independent, and 100% is going to join Russia because the conflict there has been going on for too long. You have to understand that this is to the west. They are very naive. They think that this is Russian imperialism. Imperialism doesn't work in today's age because you can't massacre people to force your will. How the Mongols can conquer such a big land is because anyone who resists the Mongols get wiped out. All the guys, all the males of adult age and teenage age. I'm not sure the boys will get killed. I can't remember, but all guys is killed. Only left the girls. That's how the Mongols can conquer such huge territory without massacring populations. You cannot have imperialism. It's not possible. How the Nazis are able to what the Nazis did was imperialism. They basically go in, they take out certain population and wipe them out. But as you can also tell from World War II, it's so difficult. Even the Nazis tried. They cannot kill people fast enough that they have to start to use poison gas and everything, because there's just way too many people. The modern age is very different from the medieval age. There's just way too many people to the point where you can't really do imperialism because you can't really control this many people. Even if you have the weapon, it's just so hard. So to the concept of Russian imperialism is nonsensical. The they are the same people. They are all Russians. To the Russians, they're all Russian. Even Ukrainians are Russians to the Russians. It's just that the Ukrainians think that, at least the West Ukrainians think that they are different people from the Russians. which I can understand because they are in between Poland and the Russians. So maybe just like the Rohingyas think that they are their own people, even though they are actually Banglas, they are actually Bangladeshi or Chittagonians. They are like a separate race. They are actually the part of another race, but they because they got separated from Bangladesh or or in the past East Pakistan, so they make their own identity. So they call themselves the Rohingyas, but actually they're just Banglas or Bangladeshi. So it's very funny. So the Ukrainians are doing the same thing as well. They think that oh they are separate people, but to the Russians, the East Ukraine is all Russians, and the people will just identify them as themselves as ethnic Russians. Just like I say I'm Chinese, although that don't make sense in the Western world because they think that Chinese is China. So, but in Asia, because there's so many ethnic Chinese in every country, when we say Chinese, we're just talking about our race. So I'm Chinese. So if you come to Singapore, you will hear that you say, "Oh, I'm Chinese," but they're not talking about the nationality because we will be very specific when they say China Chinese or PRCs because they are like totally different kind of people from us. So so but the people in the East Ukrainians are Russians technically, and the for in if you are Russian, you are Russia, and you're supposedly the homeland of uh all Russians, then you will find it very disturbing, right? These two regions just next to us. We are such a big country, and these two small little regions, no, are getting uh killed and they are getting suppressed just because they cannot agree with the overthrowing of the president. So they fought their own rebellion. They wanted self-rule, and they wanted autonomy, which the new government don't allow. Which is why there was this fight because the Ukrainians, the new Ukrainian government did not want to talk. Is they say that no, you will follow our rule. They send in the military. That's why there was a civil war in the first place. So the Russians have their own reasons to go in. It would not that I agree, but that's just how things will happen. Because once you try to do something against democratic rule or democratic law, that's what happens. Like so, no, it always happens every time. Rule of law, democracy, all these government systems are there for a reason. Because once you break them, the country will go into chaos. What's happening in the United States is the same thing. The entire election system is now uh, many people doubt it. Whether is it legitimate. Then the justice systems is now getting dubbed as well. How can you arrest the former president on weird charges? So and then why people can lie on oath and nothing ever happened to them. So eventually this will all lead up to a breakup of the country or the breakdown of the country. Same thing happened to Ukraine when you overthrow a democratically elected president. Of course, your country is going to go into anarchy, and so that's how it is. So, um, yeah. Why was I talking about all this? I lost my train of thought.
um, I think it was I had asked about the initial stage of the war. They marched or not marched,
Oh
but they
yeah,
once
why we talk about so
yeah.
far away? So they went straight for Kiev.
Hmm.
Then and they says they have airborne troops trying to take one of the airport. So the plan was to put pressure on Ukraine. So they try to take the air base, and then they want to use the air base to air transport more stuff in. They didn't. The problem is the Russians did not expect the kind of resistance the Ukrainians put up. So they never thought that the Ukrainians will fight back to that kind of extent. Because if your country is suddenly getting overwhelmed with one fifth maybe of the country getting overrun by Russian forces, probably you will give up and just talk because anyway the Russians are not intending to. Oh yeah, because I said the Russians don't want to fight a war. So because the Russians are not there to fight a war because the troop levels is just not high enough. So they just want to negotiate so that they end it for once and for all. So however, the Ukrainians have a different plan, and whoever is advising Ukraine from the NATO side definitely have a different plan. They want the war, so they already prepared Ukrainians for war. So so that's what they did. Yeah. So and the Russians, because they embarked in such an ambitious plan, and they are not ready for to control such a huge territory, the Russians have took a lot of losses, a lot of casualties because their troops are too spread out. And eventually they have to give up the entire northern front where they actually drive all the way to Kiev and to the edge of Kharkiv because they have to give it up because they just don't have enough troops to hold it. And eventually there will be two more, I think three more withdrawals. Uh, Kharkiv twice, and then Kherson also because of troop numbers problem because the Russians, like I said, they are not imperialistic because if they are, they will not have prepared such a small number of troops to invade the country. They will have they will have a 1 million strong troops, and then NATO not even would probably not even sure if they want to get involved because the troop number will be so high. So it's not that's not the number that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And then the troops are also they are just part of their regular force where they have a contract. So there was like a 6 month contract kind of thing. So once the contract ended, all the troops was gone, withdrawn. That's when the Ukrainians started their counteroffensive because the Russians do not have the regular forces. There was literally almost no Russian military in Ukraine when the Ukrainian offensive happened. It was defended mostly by the militias, by the militias from the Donbass region, the Luhansk and the Donetsk region, and the volunteer forces. So, which is why if you follow the war, like for example in the battle for Liman, where the counteroffensive came, the Ukrainian offensive came, you will hear that the stories is that it is the Bas 13, the volunteer group that was holding the line, and it's not Russian military. The Russian military only came later to they are the mobilized troops. They just mobilized, and then they don't even have gone through training. They immediately went in, cover the retreat route, and then they pull back all the way back to Crimea. So that was yeah. So that also shows another point of why the Russians are not imperialistic because who the hell go try to conquer a different country with such bad planning? That was not the plan of the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
So the all the plans went wrong. So which is why the Russians is going to act very differently now. Because which is why the Russian government also the leadership expressed their disappointment when Merkel and then later got another guy, I forgot his name, admitted that the Minsk agreement was just to delay, to give time to the Ukrainians to militarize. And I think the Russians already know that. I mean, they are not stupid. It's just that maybe the confirmation of this information just disappoint them because, like I said, the Russians really want to integrate with Europe. They really want to be European. The Russians always think themselves as European. Even the people living in the Far East, they also think that they are Europeans. So the disappointment must be tremendous for the Russians as well because to the Russians, it's like, why are you doing all this? We built the pipeline so that we have trade. No, we buy all your car, all your branded goods. No, we just want peace.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot allow Ukraine to do this to our ethnic Russians. And they have to do something about it. They waited for 8 years. It's not like they did not wait. They have to they did annex Crimea, but there was a military consideration. They have to, because Crimea was historically Russian land, and they have their naval base there. The main problem is the naval base. They cannot allow, uh, because they know that. So what happens is that you overthrow a pro-Russian government, the president. Then the next time, then you're not going to ever get a pro-Russian president ever. And they probably also predicted that when this happened, the pro-Russian uh, side is going to rebel somehow because of anarchy. And as a result, if they go into a civil war kind of situation like what eventually happened, then the official election will always be pro-West, the results, because the pro-Russian side will never be voting. And that's exactly why since the overthrow of the president since 2014, every election is going to be pro-West government because there's not enough pro-Russians to vote against the tide. And especially they just make a calculation and say that okay, we need to at least hold Crimea. So they took Crimea, and it's a defendable place because there's a natural choke point. So the Ukrainians can't really just say, oh, they send in the military and try to fight it back. It's not possible. But Donbass is a different thing. They just left Donbass to rot.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, if I'm a Donbass resident, I will be pissed with the Russians. It's like, why do you take so long to come? We suffered for 8 years, and
Mm-hmm.
but that's what happened. The Russian came.
Mm-hmm.
They're happy now, but people are still dying. So yeah.
And how close was it in those initial stages to where you could get both sides to like the negotiating table? I guess a better way to phrase this question is like how close was a deal? How close was a deal to be reached? If you know what I'm saying, was it close at
Okay,
all at one point?
so there was this very high level talk um, in Istanbul. That was around 1 month into the war, and and as a reason, and the talk, or at least how the mainstream media or the pro-Russian side or whoever like to put it, as that is very close to a deal. They are almost going to sign a deal. Then they say that the Boris Johnson then stopped it. Then tell Zelensky something that they will continue to support the war or whatever, and then the Ukrainians back out of the negotiations, and then the war continues. And that's also when the Russians retreated from the Kiev region entirely, the entire northern front. They gave it up. Uh, where the Russians say that it's a goodwill gesture, which I thought is nonsensical. They just cannot hold the line because the Ukrainian was mobilizing, and then the forces was getting stronger and stronger. So they cannot really hold the line. The fighting is getting fiercer and fiercer. So they have to redraw, because if they do not redraw, the entire force there can be collapsed, can be can be destroyed. So my during my reporting, then I don't believe the deal will be met. I don't believe there will be a deal at all. But if you look at a lot of the pro-Russians or some of the mainstream medias, or the people who are anti-NATO or whatever, or just anti-Ukraine, they say that that was the point where the deal was about to be signed, and then it was hijacked by Boris Johnson flying to Kiev to convince him of something else. I don't think that's the case. Even though that's what they like to say, I don't think that's the case. During my reporting, then I never thought that the negotiation is legit. It was just to delay time. It's just an excuse to look like they are doing something to try to reach a peace settlement, but there will never be a peace settlement, because what the Russians demand of and what the Ukrainians want is a contradiction. The Ukrainians want the Russians to withdraw from Donbass entirely, including Crimea, and they want Donbass to entirely surrender and give up, even though Russians are the one that is invading. So it's like, so you're never going to get the kind of result. The Russians definitely want Donbass, and they are 100% keeping Crimea. And so how can there be a peace deal? It's
Mm-hmm.
impossible. Yeah, so that's what happened. But the Russians did make it clear that I forgot who's the one who said that, but the longer that this war drag, the smaller Ukraine will become. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happens, because in the initial deal, the Russians were only asking for the independence of Donbass, Donetsk and the Luhansk region into their own republic.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can actually go into the absorption of them into the Russian Federation, because they have to be an independent country first. So that was the Russian plan. Even if they don't become independent country, I think Russia is pretty happy with that as well, because they can just be another Transnistria, uh, but they have a recognition from the international community, because if the Ukrainians recognize them, then they will be recognized. So at least you have two small little republics that Russia can take care of. I think that also works for Russia. Then at least they don't need to worry too much about uh, giving them passports or and no, it's not their responsibility. It's not Russia's responsibility. So that could also work for Russia as well. Um, But that did not happen because Ukraine don't want to surrender then. So now Russia forcefully absorbed Zaporizhia and Kherson. And obviously this annexation is illegal, is so-called illegal because the referendum is clearly nonsensical because only half of the people actually voted because the other half is in the Ukrainian side. So this is definitely not legitimate, but the Russians needed it. They needed to annex all this territory so that they can justify mobilization. So, like I said, you cannot go against the law or the your constitution or the way how the country is supposed to run. If not, you'll collapse the country. So that's why Putin understand this, which is why he's the steps taken now or according so called according to Russian law, and then they're escalating. They annex the
Hmm.
territory, then they can say, "Oh, welcome that back, welcome this territory, these people back to the Russian arms because they have always been Russian." And then okay, now we need to protect them, so we need to mobilize to make sure that we finish our job, the special military operation. That's how the Russians will put it. So
Hmm.
yeah, unfortunately, this is going to expand further, I believe, because the fighting now is fierce. Because the objective now is just to wipe out the Ukrainian military. There will be a point where the Ukrainians will cannot, all the NATO reinforcement cannot keep up. 100% there will be this point. So once that point is reached, then you will see the Russians start to spread out much faster, and then they will probably annex more land. Maybe Kharkiv, maybe Mykolaiv region. Maybe they will invade into Odessa,
Hmm.
perhaps. So
Hmm.
we I do not know, but I believe that eventually at the very end, half of Ukraine will be gone
Wow.
because the other half
Wow.
is just west Ukraine, which the Russians do not want. These
Hmm.
people they have no interest in. Like I said, those are the people who believe that they are a separate people from Russia, so from Russians. So the Russians will also say, okay, sure, you'll be your own people, but they will take back whatever land that will allow Russia to defend their territory easy, which is definitely along the Dnieper River.
Hmm.
So uh, this war is still long for sure.
And the current state of the war right now, and this is it the city's pronounced Bakhmut? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Bakhmut.
yes, Bakhmut.
How, what is what is the significance of this particular city and like the macrocosm of this whole war? Like this is a pretty big like sticking point for both sides.
It's a funny thing. So in the past, when the front line was not even near Bakhmut, Bakhmut is a very important place because it's a hub, it's a transport hub. There's a lot of major roads leading out from it. So that's where all the supplies and reinforcement will arrive at for the Ukrainians before moving to the separate front lines on the eastern front. But the front line has already moved all the way to Bakhmut. So it's just another frontline city. There's actually no significance to it. It's just another city. There's because it lost its purpose as a hub because the front line has gone. If let's say the front lines are still all around, and then the Russian forces go straight into Bakhmut, and that will disable and so-called operationally encircle the rest of the front line, then yes, Bakhmut is important in that sense. But it's not. The front line just slowly, gradually move into Bakhmut. And so Bakhmut is just another front line. So it's not strategically important at all by right. It's just another city. There's still many cities behind it where the Ukrainians can defend. The problem comes because of propaganda. Like remember I tell you about the Ukrainians doing the hybrid warfare or the information war. So they put out a lot of contradicting information. First they say that no, Bakhmut is very important. Then they say Bakhmut is not important. Then they say Bakhmut is very important. Then they say that um Russians are stupid to throw so many troops into a not important city. Then after that they say we will not let Bakhmut fall. Then no, then there's rumors of no, they are going to withdraw from Bakhmut. Then there are people, I think generals or something, they'll say that no, Bakhmut situation is very bad. They need to withdraw. Then after that, Zelensky said that no, after after consultation with the top generals, the top military leaders, we decided that Bakhmut is important, and we will make sure that it will not fall. You can see the information just go left and right, left and right, left and right, and because they are so effective at making use of the Western media, because the Western media are all suckers for Ukraine. So whatever Zelensky or the Ukraine government say, they think it is Bible. So when they say Bakhmut is important, all the press in the world printed Bakhmut is important, and that's the problem. Now Bakhmut become important because Zelensky said so, and now they cannot withdraw, even though militarily it's already gone the gone case situation. If you keep sending troops in, they're just all going to die there because of the encirclement. And the Russians already have the artillery, plan out, how you want to strike where, we know what's the coordinates. We don't even need to move because the Ukrainians run out of artillery to fight back. So they have very limited artillery or counter artillery abilities now in the Bakhmut region because most of them have been taken out because the fight there was so long, right? So eventually, because of attrition, you're going to lose all your artillery and surface to air missiles and everything because you are fighting there for too long. So eventually, someone is going to die, and they died. So now the situation is that the Russians have superior ground force, superior artillery, superior missiles, superior air force, everything superior, and yet they have to hold the city because they already put out the word that they will hold the city. So they are just sending troops in just to hold as long as they can until they are ready to do their offensive, their so-called spring offensive, which then the Prime Minister of Ukraine said, "Oh, it's going to be a summer offensive," which I think is a misinformation. They are still, and because it's going to be a spring offensive, the leaked paper say it's going to be a spring offensive. Maybe they're just trying to confuse the information, to blur out the information so that people cannot tell if the papers are true or not. But they are definitely have to go into the spring offensive because they can't hold Bakhmut for another month. It's not possible. It probably can't even hold for another week at this current rate. They are losing grounds very quickly because the Russians are no longer holding back, it seems. The moment since that they are able to drop the gliding bombs, they literally just bomb any buildings that the Ukrainians try to hold. And in the past, they don't have the kind of caliber of bombs to take down the entire building. So now they could. So if you want to put a lot of troops in one building, the whole building is just going to be gone. No, so there's the consideration for civilians is now near zero because they don't even believe that civilians in Bakhmut now. So it's like, even if there is, they're not. I don't think the Russians care now. It seems if they see you, they will rescue you. But but in terms of conflict, they are not going to hold back. It seems that there's this change. Previously, the Russians keep holding back, but now it's like they're just using the big bombs, and that's it because they just want to wipe out the military as fast as they can. There seems to be a change. Seems to be. So Bakhmut is not important because Zelensky says so. So it's important now. That's the conclusion. I went too long for a simple answer.
Wyatt, this has been a great conversation. I feel like I can just keep throwing. I have like many other questions, but I will have to wrap things up here. I did want to ask you actually one question, not Russian Ukraine related, and it was something something I just saw today actually, and I don't know if you followed what has happened. I think just today in Sudan with some forces rushing into the capital city of Khartoum, I believe, and there's apparently some fighting going on. And I know Sudan has had other conflicts before too, but I was just wondering if you were following that at all.
No, yeah, that's the problem with the Ukraine war coverage because it takes so much time. I don't have chance to really read up about the things happening over in the other regions. There's so many things, so many important things happening, and I just kind of cover it because there's only one me. So that's the problem, and it's very hard to. It's like every time after the 4 or 5 hours of Ukraine war mapping, and then I do the video. I'm drained. So I'm very tired. So the which is also partly why I'm so tired just now because after I finished mapping, I went out. I quickly do one quick video and then I went out for my family dinner. So when I came back, I'm like, no, I wanted to do the sit rep for the day. I just cannot. I was like, oh, cannot. I need to sleep. Then I went to sleep. So yeah. So but my understanding from the headlines is it does seems like it seems like another coup.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think but Sudan always been very vexed. So
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of things happening now in Africa. A lot of things. A lot of things is happening in Africa. It, the so many revolutions, so many overthrowing of governments, and the governments are all also those that are not being overthrown are also starting to become very, very, very pro Russia and China overtly. And there are also talks about they are going to ditch the dollar for trade in Africa. They are trying to gather support. So a lot of very dangerous things that they are trying to do because they are literally asking for invasion from the United States. So I'm not sure what will happen. Um, but when so many countries all do it at the same time, United States can't possibly declare war on the entire of Africa.
Hmm.
So yeah, which is what I mean by so many things are happening around the world. The Ukraine war, like in my opinion, like I said, Ukraine is actually very unimportant to the rest of the world. The is really not important at all. Like nobody cares. Like if you talk about the export that they have, the grains and everything, Russia is exporting the same thing.
Mm.
So the the world, even if Ukraine burns for another 20 years, it's not going to change anything in terms of the rest of the world because the Russia will just supplement it with their own productions. So so this is why I say the rest of the world is not going to care about Ukraine. The most important thing actually is the fallout due to the Ukraine war. I think that's what I think people should be watching. The world is changing crazy fast in the past year, and it's only speeding up now because when the Xi Jinping took power for the third time, so he got voted in again, which is impossible by right. There's no such thing as a third term. So he essentially consolidated power. And so with him consolidating power means people are confident about China being consistent as per what he had done for the past 10 years to carry on. So all the leaders that are ready to go on the BRICS train. So BRICS is coming up. So they know that this is going to be consistent. Just like Putin is still around, they know that. So and Modi is all around. The Modi will always be around because it's a British parliamentary system in a way. So the prime minister will always be around. There's unlimited terms, just like Singapore prime minister is unlimited terms. So with the three major powers leaders always going to be the same, at least for the foreseeable future. Everybody's going to bet on BRICS because they know that these people is going to continue to pledge support for whoever is going to follow them. So now the de-dollarization is happening very fast because they sanctioned Russia out of the dollar, and the Western financial system. So Russia have to find alternative system, and as a result, China supports it because China see what happened to Russia. They don't want it to happen to them, so they support the building of an alternative system. India also, because India felt very threatened because when Ukraine war happened, the West tried to force India into supporting the West and supporting Ukraine, and India cannot do that because Russia is a strategic ally, is a strategic partner. Russia and India relationship is very close. This is what people don't understand. They are very, very close. They are why is very close because India is a democracy. Russia is a democracy, which is why they are the perfect match to counter China. This is why they were always been very good friends. And with Russia and India combining, it's basically one line to and blocking China from any Western expansion if they ever want to, which I don't think so. But it is a geopolitical thing. So the all these things that's happening, everybody. But India felt that pressure, so they will also support this alternate system. because it's like, how can you weaponize a financial system? So everybody's unhappy. Indonesia is saying the same thing. So Saudi Arabia is saying the same thing. Everybody is saying the same thing. So the world is going to change so fast. Europe and United States is in danger. It's now at high risk, and United States is undergoing some kind of a revolution of sort. So now, so it's a lot of crazy shit is happening in United States, which means that the Western leadership, which is always US led, is going to have a inferior or ineffective leadership, because Biden himself is not a very good leader. He don't inspire confidence. So as a result, no, the West is now in a very very deep uh, uh, conundrum, and yet because of the woke culture, the political correctness culture that has been developed in the West over the past 10 years, means that nobody dares to admit wrong, and nobody dares to and stand up to insanity and say that no, this is stupid. No, we have to stop. Nobody dare to say that because everybody is politically correct now. No leaders dare to stand up and say this is nonsensical. Only Hungary dare to say that, and then the moment he said that, he's getting demonized, and then they will threaten sanctions against the fellow EU member. The kind of thing is so. I will highly suggest people to not care about Ukraine that much. The war is going to just drag on for a long time. I'm just stuck in the commitment to continue to report the war, rather than to me it's just a very boring war now. Like, it's not that interesting. Uh, it's interesting only if you are a military person. You really like military stuff. You like war, which no, I'm okay. I like military stuff, so I can still I like maps, so I can still do it. But the important things is not happening in Ukraine. The important thing is happening around the world, in the geopolitics, in the economics, in the financial systems. I highly suggest you guys to follow those situations, because Ukraine is really not that important. Like seriously, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine is just like Bakhmut. It's important because the leaders say so. It's not really because it's really important. Yeah, like, who cares about what underwear Justin Timberlake wears? No, it's just because the magazine says it's important.
Mm.
So don't get duped into all these tabloid headlines. It's not important. Yeah.
Wyatt, yeah, Wyatt, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was a great conversation. I certainly learned a lot, and I have pages of notes here, and I would love the chance to do this again to ask you more things
There's always next
someday.
time. No
Yeah.
worries.
Really quick before we go, Wyatt, where can people reach you or connect with you, like social media wise, your website, etc.?
Okay, so if you want to talk to me, you can always find my name, Wyatt Mingji Lim. But if you want to talk to me in terms of, like, in the context of Defense Politics Asia, just you can just Google Defense Politics Asia. A lot of nonsense will come out. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Telegram, my website, YouTube, Rumble, even Odyssey. But I don't really care about Odyssey. So no, yeah, the best, but don't just message everywhere. Certain place I will reply very slow, like Instagram. It's a stupid inbox. The messaging system, which is very hard to use. Same as Facebook, because they're the same thing. The best is probably Twitter, and or you can email me, admin at defensepoliticsasia.com. Yeah, or join the Telegram, or you can join the Discord. There's a DPA Discord. Yeah, you can find all the links. If you go to the YouTube channel, the links are all below in the description. Yeah. So but I know people don't like to read the descriptions. I have no idea why. Although I'm guilty of that as well when I watch other YouTube channels. So yeah, the links are all there. The links are all there.
And I'll include some of those links in the description of this episode. Wyatt, thank you so much. And I know it's nighttime where you're at. It's very late, and just really appreciate the time coming on and talking to me. And I'm a fan, and thank you for all you do. Keep doing what you do.
No
And
worry.
yeah,
I'm basically living in European timing, so it's okay. And this is my awake time usually.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, sir. I really
Thank you, Chris.
appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon. Everybody out
Yep.
there, thank you
And
very
do
much.
follow Chris. Follow, subscribe, whatever platform you are listening from. Do just if there's a like button, press the like button. Don't be shy. Yeah.
I
If not, then
appreciate that.
I will tell the Russians to annex you.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. For everybody out there, just thank you very much for listening today. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care, everybody.